you. Did you know that since Donald Trump became President of the United States of America, up to 591 days of his presidency, it's being tracked, that he told 2,519 lies in the time that he has been president for 591 days. That averages out to 4.3 lies per day. He is the President of the United States of America. Every word that falls from his lips is listened around the world. And he tells 4.3 lies per day. And he has children and others who listen to every word that he says. But he's not alone in this. He's not alone in this. I mention his name because he is the most current political figure, and that the lies have become so egregious and numerous. But there are other lies that have been told, and this is why we have become so cynical about our politicians or the people who lead us. We say, oh yeah, I've heard all that before. As soon as they get in power, it changes. You just ask the people of Ontario about Doug Ford in terms of what's happening in that province. If you go back, if we track back to the war in Iraq, there's no war that was conducted in these latter years that was built more on a lie than that one. You know, we're looking for the weapons of mass destruction that did not exist. And even Colin Powell became part of the lying. And as a result, thousands of people lost their lives. Thousands of people lost their lives. So that takes me to James. That takes me to the Epistle of James. This piece of wisdom literature, because that's what it's become known as, this piece of wisdom literature in the New Testament is easily 2,000 years old. And yet it rings so true for us today in the living of our lives today. Let me tell you a little bit about this letter of James. It is one of the 21 letters that are in the New Testament or the Christian scriptures. And it is one of the letters that really had a tough time getting into the canon or the text. Why? Number one, because the theology that it offers in the book or the Epistle of James was not the same as that of Paul. Paul said that we could be, that our lives and our living, we could do it by faith alone. Justification by faith alone. James says, well, yes, except that if you are a person of faith, that works need to accompany that. That we need to live out. It's not enough to say, I do have faith in God, but then how are you going to live that out? And so James, he wasn't really well regarded for a lot of time, and so it had difficulty getting into the text. Martin Luther, hundreds of years later, still considered it to be an epistle of straw, but it didn't have much to say. And yet, in these latter years, we have come to see that James is a form of wisdom literature. We don't really know who wrote it. There are about 5 or 6 theories about who wrote this. Some say it was James, the brother of Jesus. Others say it's James, the son of Alphaeus, who was a disciple. Some say it was a mysterious writer who we don't really can't know. But the fluency of the Greek would probably say that it wasn't written by that group that were around Jesus, because they would be, Greek would not be a language that they'd be comfortable speaking or writing. So it was written for Jewish Christians, that emerging sect called the Christians that were emerging, and we don't know when it was written. It could have been written in 62 AD, if you believe that James, the brother of Jesus, wrote it, because he was martyred in that year, so sometime just before that. But others say it was written in the 2nd century AD. So all of that is kind of unknown, unformed, and lots of speculation. But what we do know from the book of James is that He is very direct. And that it is a wisdom literature, and that he had the courage to speak up, to say, wait a minute. If you are a person of faith, there are some things that are expected of you. And number one, tame your tongue. In this particular passage. Tame your tongue. And Mary did it so beautifully with that tube of toothpaste. You can't get it back in. You have to ask for a lot of forgiveness. So what James is saying is that often we get caught up, as Jim Carrey did, in kind of trying to make it work and telling a few lies to make it work. Or, when we're angry, saying hurtful things that come to the lips. When I was a little girl, my mother would say, when I would be saying something about a little friend at school, she'd say, if you can't say anything nice about that person, don't say anything at all. And maybe try and make a friend of that person. She offered me that wisdom. So she was telling me to tame my tongue. And this is a very important lesson for us in terms of the living of our lives. The things that Donald Trump says about human beings are egregious. And most of them are lies. And this is a person that is in a leadership position that is strong and powerful. But I contend that each one of us in our own circle are in places of power, in that people listen to you. If they have anything if you are in a relationship with someone, they listen to you. Maybe they don't listen to you often enough and they pretend that they're deaf. But that within your own circle of the people you meet, the people that you're involved in a relationship with, and in community. Our theme for these first 6 weeks of the year for us, this new church year, is about what does it mean to live in community? What does it mean for us to care for one another and actually live in community? Not for me to stand up here on Sunday morning and say, welcome into our community, and a few things that I would say around that. We want to live it. We want to model for the world what it could be like to live in a community that is filled with trust, with honesty, with transparency, with genuine caring, all of those things that are the ground on which a community is built. The ground on which a community is built. That's why we have a behavioral covenant. Our little transition team, worked on that for quite a number of weeks, and then we took it to the board, and then we took it to you. I encourage you to pick up a copy of it, because it expresses in words, in 2.5 pages or something, about how we will seek to live in community. Based on mutual respect, based on that sense that everyone who comes to us is a child of God. And that we are to live in that mutual respect and love, caring, compassion, all those things that Jesus talked about. Now, we're not going to get it right every time. Oh, good God, no. And God knows. We're not going to get it right every time. But that's where forgiveness comes in. That's where having the courage to say, I misspoke. Or I did something that is hurtful to community, and I need to ask forgiveness for that. And this whole matter of taming the tongue, and if we consistently tell lies or act in ways that are egregious to another human being, if we consistently and continually do that, there can be no community. And this is what makes me worried. When our political leaders lie to us and make statements that are not true, then how are we to build a world that is filled with love and peace and community? For Donald Trump to deny that 3,000 people died in Puerto Rico for his own political gains, because it's the Democrats' fault, they're just making him look bad. You see what's happened to him? And he's just the most recent example. He begins to believe the lies. And that's what happens to us. We begin to believe the lies, and then our whole life becomes a lie. And so, for us to read from the Epistle of Straw from James is to hear in pretty strong language that faith absolutely is critical to our lives, but the good works that accompany it are equally important. And that we are, if we are seeking to live the Christian life, as Melva made reference to in his prayer, if we are to live the Christian life, we got to strive to tame our tongues, take time to listen, yes, offer truthfully from our heart how we're feeling about things, and then come together in community. Because I tell you that what a community of loving people offers is powerful and can transform the world. Let's be about transformation this year, shall we? Amen.